In England right now, roughly 1 in 9 new homes are reportedly being built on land at risk of flooding. And 1 in 4 buyers are unaware of the flood risks, despite all the checks and surveys you go through when buying a home. Which sounds like a massive process and planning mistake, but it's not. It's the result of a system that quietly allows developers to reap huge profits by building on risky land, while the risks and consequences are left at the doorstep of unsuspecting homeowners. So the first question that needs to be answered is, why are we even building on flood risk land in the first place? Well, firstly, it's because the land is cheap, precisely because it floods, like these 2 plots in Lincolnshire. Whereas there's a premium on lower risk land on higher ground, like these plots in Berkshire. And the second reason is that land at risk of flooding is widely available and often easier to develop into larger plots. And this is great news for property developers, because it means higher margins. If you can buy cheaply, build fast, and sell at a high market price, that can mean huge profits, even if the location carries with it a long-term risk. Why? Well, because the homeowner absorbs all the risk later, not the developer, who will be long gone by the time all the consequences might hit. The thing I can't wrap my head around about this is that if there was a flood risk, you would expect there'd be something in place to prevent it being developed for residential purposes. And the thing is, technically there is. It's something called the sequential test, which is used to ensure that development is steered towards areas which are low probability of flood risk. So, in theory, councils should prioritise safer land first. But, and it's a big but, if they argue that there's no reasonable alternatives, permission can be granted anyway. And even when the Environment Agency raises flood objections, local authorities can, and repeatedly do, override them. In fact, they've used this power to approve nearly 3,000 homes against expert advice in the past decade alone. So the system doesn't ban floodplain development, it manages it. And managing risk is very different to preventing it. Okay, let's just recap, because it's easy to get lost in this stuff. So developers are buying cheaper, potentially risky land and selling homes on that land at a standard market rate and making huge profits. And local councils are facilitating this to hit their housing targets and avoid penalties. Meanwhile, developers pocket the profits without facing any of the consequences and move on to their next project, leaving homeowners to pick up the pieces. And there's a name for this. It's what economists call risk transfer, where businesses keep the financial benefits whilst passing on the risk. But how are they getting away with this? I mean, when you're buying a home, there are checks by a solicitor and a physical survey by a chartered surveyor, which is now mandated to consider flood resilience and climate change. But these reports are difficult to decipher, and as a result, 1 in 4 are still unaware of their current home's flood risk. Another risk homeowners face is rising insurance premiums, if they can get insurance at all. Many can't, and so will possibly bear the full cost of monumental repairs, or even the risk of losing their home altogether. And with flooding becoming more frequent and more severe due to the climate crisis, this is an ever-increasing risk. Local authorities and developers may point to the fact that many new developments include flood mitigation measures, such as raised foundations, drainage systems, retention ponds, and sustainable drainage design. But mitigation reduces damage, it does not remove the risk. And once flooding happens, resale is a problem, insurance is a problem, remortgaging is a problem, and ultimately the long-term risk that mitigations will fail still sits with the homeowner.
4 severe flood warnings remain in place in Monmouthshire.
75 flood warnings and 191 flood alerts were in place at the start of this week.
Everyone knows that flood risk is a growing problem in the UK, and yet the situation is still happening. And it's because the system is designed to prioritise housing volume over housing safety. And at the bottom of the pile, footing the bill and the consequences, are the very people that house building initiatives are supposed to be helping. If you're worried that your house might be at risk, we've included some links in the description where you can check your flood risk, sign up for flood warnings, and also make a flood plan.